Welcome, welcome, welcome on another beautiful Monday in America. It's not as hot as it was the last month or so this summer, but we're here for you guys. I'm joining you from my patio outside of my home. I have guests in my house, and my home office is being taken over by them. No problem, though. We're still committed to doing the show anyway, no matter where we are. I'm Kendrick. That's Jared Hoffman. That's Chris Stevens. We got a jam packed show for you guys today. We're talking everything from football to lacrosse, and this lacrosse story is very, very serious and very, very sad. We're going to say that a little bit for later in the show. But first, we're going to go into news that dropped this morning. The defending champion Florida A&M Rattlers got the respect of the FCS football coaches and were ranked in the FCS coaches poll at number 25. They were the only black college football team at the Division One level who were ranked in the poll. They even got one first place vote. I don't know how that's possible, but despite them losing Willie Simmons to Duke and losing both offensive and defensive player of the year in the SWAC, one voter out there thought, hey, this still is the best team in all the country. So, fellas, what do we make of Florida A&M getting the respect of a champion and being ranked in the FCS top 25 poll?
Well, I think it speaks to what we've talked about before on this particular podcast that yes, until you lose, you're still the team to beat. And right now, Florida A&M and everyone else in black college football and FCS is 0-0. We are actually this is the last weekend, y'all. This is the last weekend until November or late December that we don't have college football on the weekend. So, everybody hold tight, stay calm. We are on the way. But I feel like this Florida A&M team, where people are underestimating them at their own peril. And I say this as someone who had them ranked a little below number one in the HBCU Sports FCS poll, but it just says that the coaches around the country still have respect for what Florida A&M has accomplished. How they've built that program up because that program was in tatters before Willie Simmons got there, and eventually built that team up to be an over 500 team, a division contender. Then, of course, last year the Black College and National Champions. So, what that says is that the coaches around the country still have a healthy respect for Florida A&M, and that is a huge bonus for a program that needs a lot of wins on and off the field coming into the season.
Yeah, Jared, you can talk about FAMU being ranked, but also in the poll receiving votes from HBCU football were North Carolina A&T, Alcorn State, and Alabama State, along with Howard. Now, in North Carolina Central too. Now, of the teams I just mentioned, North Carolina A&T got 6 votes in the poll, despite the fact that they finished with one win in 2023, and they're coming into this season. They're picked 14 out of 16 teams in their own conference. Jared, what do you make of North Carolina A&T getting respect they probably don't deserve?
Hold on, I gotta look up these rankings because there's no way that's true. Are you serious? I'm sorry. I'm sorry. North
This is not
Carolina.
a conspiracy theory. It's actually true. It's posted on the NCAA website.
That
And yes,
that's really insane that they really and it look yes they got votes. Wow. Okay. I guess somebody just woke up from 2019 and said, "Oh yeah, North Carolina A&T, they're going to be pretty good this year." Look, all seriousness, A&T, you're in a rebuilding phase right now. Do not read too much into this. You getting votes to be in the top 25 because I cannot see that being that kind of year for you. Hey, maybe they know something that we don't. Maybe they found a recruit in the transfer portal or from high school that they expect to be a phenom, a superstar. But I honestly don't know what it is that maybe they confused North Carolina Central and North Carolina A&T. I don't know. I, I'm trying not to be disrespectful, but I don't see where you think a 1-9 team is all of a sudden. They're not Miles. Miles did that last year. This is not this. Miles is not in the CAA. Just like North Carolina A&T is in the CAA. I don't know where you think they're gonna go from being 1-10 to all of a sudden they're gonna be one of the top teams in FCS football. I'm confused by that, quite honestly. Hopefully they prove me wrong and I come up with egg on my face. I would love for me to be wrong, but I don't see where this optimism is coming from for North Carolina A&T to have a turnaround season.
Yeah, I mean, like the coaches circles off a one big fraternity, and they all respect each other and love each other. But I can't think of any reason why you have North Carolina A&T possibly getting votes in this poll. They went 1-10 last year. 1-10. They were terrible last year. The offense was horrible. Their defense was not very good at all either. Despite it being better than this offense, it was not very good either. And they made some headway on the recruiting trail in the offseason under second-year coach Vincent Brown, but I don't think not enough to be considered one of the top 25 teams in the country. It to me, it kind of delegitimizes the poll a little bit when you put them as under consideration for a spot in the poll. I mean, like, yeah, we know like the North Dakota States, South Dakota States, those teams, yeah, they're at the top of the poll. That's expected. Even FAMU, despite the fact they're not even being picked to win the SWAC East and a lot of other media who are in our space, they got North Carolina Central being the best team among Black college football teams at Division I level. But for North Carolina A&T to be ranked, be considered to be ranked, that's skeptical.
Yep.
What say you, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, if this was a lifetime achievement award, then yes. But we're talking about this is what the great Janet Demita Joe Jackson sang many years ago. What have you done for me lately? And right now, this North Carolina A&T squad hasn't done a whole bunch of nothing to be considered. 6 votes in the grand scheme of things. I mean, most of the teams in the top 25 got like anywhere from 200 to about 70, 75. So, I mean, it's a drop in the bucket, but still, that's a strange drop in the bucket for a team that went 1-10. And granted, seems like that Aggie program, likes to play for Vincent Brown. Of course, Vincent Brown himself, a former HBCU grad, went to Mississippi Valley State, known as the Undertaker during his playing days. But it just seems like people are just basing things off of what they assume to be true. And as Jared said, the Coastal, that's a conference that you're not getting very far this year in the Coastal. I'm sorry. Yes, it does. Yes, UD and Richmond don't count because they're leaving after this year. But you still got to deal with Villanova. Still got to deal with Stony Brook. Still got to deal with Vermont. Still got to deal with New Hampshire. Still got to deal with Towson. Still got to deal with William and Mary, Campbell, Elon. You see a win for North Carolina A&T at any of those games? Anybody? Anyone? Bueller? No. So it's I mean, 6 votes could have been probably used towards North Carolina Central, as Jared said, but it's I mean, God bless A&T, man. I mean, we already know that they hold themselves to a higher standard than a lot of other HBCUs would hold them to. But if they can somehow finish 6-5, then yes, that's a winning. That's absolutely a market improvement. But I just don't see that happening.
And look, I don't want to pile too much on North Carolina A&T. I think they know that last year is not up to the standard of what is acceptable for A&T, especially the A&T that we saw in the final years in the MEAC. But it's just, you're in a new conference. This is their second season in the CAA, which is arguably one of the most loaded conferences in FCS football. I think Albany made it to the Final 4 of the FCS playoffs, if I'm not mistaken. Yep. Richmond beat North Carolina A&T in the playoffs. You got Towson, who has had Morgan State's number for how many years now? Delaware, who has always been a powerhouse. I mean, it's a tough task to say. And I'm not sure what the context is behind these votes. I don't know who voted for them. I don't know. I know I was joking about it earlier, but if it was actually a mistake for them to get votes, I don't know the context behind that. We're just speculating because it was just a shock to see that they received votes. But just to speak a little bit about Florida A&M being on this list, I think it's customary, for the reigning conference champion to be on the FCS power ranking list. I think a couple of years ago when Bowie State lost Damon Wilson and all their players from the 21 team that made it to the regional semifinal. excuse me, to the regional final of the Division II playoffs. They were ranked the next season after Damon Wilson left. I think it's just customary to how the NCAA does their rankings for the reigning conference champion and whoever made it to the playoffs the previous year, or in Florida A&M's case, the Celebration Bowl. I think it's just customary for them to do their rankings like that. That's why I do my rankings like that. Why I have Benedict number one in my Division II poll, because I give respect to the team that we last saw on top. And the last teams we saw on top were Benedict and Virginia Union. Now you have uh, going back to the FCS level, you have teams like Jackson State, like Alabama State, like Southern, like Alcorn State that are going to be coming for the crown for of Florida A&M as the SWAC champion and Celebration Bowl champion. But Florida A&M right now, as they enter the 24 season, they are the reigning kings, and somebody's going to have to knock them off the throne. That's as simple as that. So I think it's just customary for the NCAA to rank the reigning conference champion and the team that we last saw on top on their rankings. But we'll see if Florida A&M is able to live up to that and if they're on those rankings at the end of the season.
Yeah, I mean, FAMU, they still have a good team coming back, regardless of the makeup of it. James Cozy is first-year coach, got a lot to prove. He's got to find him a quarterback. He's got to make sure that they have a stable of receivers that they did in years past to support their quarterback to make that thing go. I think their defense is still going to be pretty good. But yeah, like, I mean, the coaches consider Florida A&M, like you said, Jared, like the team still to beat, not only in the SWAC, but in all the black college football. So we'll see how it all shakes out.
And to be clear, they have like you said, they have a very good team on their hands. You know, Kelvin Dean is somebody that I expect to have a breakout season, the Celebration Bowl offensive MVP. You know, Jaquez Yant, who was a running back transfer from Nebraska in his second season with Florida A&M. He will get more carries, and he is a big back that has the chance to have a breakout year this year. You know, they lost their two receivers in Jamarie Sharif and Marcus Riley, both of whom had special teams, were impactful on special teams. So those are especially big losses. But they have a quarterback coming from Central Michigan, and Daniel Richardson. He and Florida Atlantic had a very good season for Florida Atlantic last year. So don't be surprised if this offense is spectacular and puts numbers on the board. And as you said before, they've lost a lot on defense. You know, losing Isaiah Major, losing BJ Bowler. You know, they lost a lot on defense, but Kendall Bowler is still there. You know, and they have there's a lineman that they have. I can't remember his name right now, but they have a big lineman that could potentially have a breakout year with all the depth that they lost from the transfer portal. So don't be surprised to see this team put numbers on the board. I would not be surprised one bit.
Yeah, I mean, we all expect FAMU to be competitive this year. They're not going to fall off the face of the earth,
right.
Because they lost some people from the title team last year. But we'll see how it goes. Sticking with football, and I'm gonna talk on one part of this segment, and Jared, you talk on the other one. It's gonna be about some performers who made either their NFL debut, or trying to make a roster with the official opening of the preseason that happened this past weekend with games on Saturday and Sunday. Some HBCU guys made some big impacts for some teams. You see here a trio of them. You got Ian Wheeler for Howard. He played for the Chicago Bears. All the talk going in that game was about Caleb Williams and Roma Dunze, how they were going to look in their first NFL games, and they look great, by the way. Not that I'm a Bears fan, they look really great, by the way. But so did Ian Wheeler. Ian Wheeler had 42 yards. He scored 2 touchdowns in the second half against the Buffalo Bills. Very impressive. He signed with the Bears as an undrafted free agent after the draft. The Bears, they have, I would say they will have a decent running back core led by Swift, who they got from Philadelphia Eagles in the offseason. But he could be a player, though, talking about Ian Wheeler. And now I'm going to leave it to Jared Hoffman to talk about the other two guys in this photograph.
Yeah, just to put just to add a little bit about Ian Wheeler. Uh, Ian Wheeler, um, the one thing I will say about Ian Wheeler is to hold off on the excitement of him potentially making the team. He had a great game against the Buffalo Bills. They were in the fourth quarter when the game was pretty much well in hand. So he was playing against a Bills defense that probably wasn't up to par, but he still played great. He was, I think the thing that most impressed me about Ian Wheeler was his ability to run through the first contact. You know, as a running back in the NFL level, you have to be strong because these defenders, they're coming at you full speed and they're coming at you with everything that they got, all of their strength and all of their speed. So being able to run through first contact is something that you have to do at the NFL level. And I think that he did that well. Both of his touchdowns were on the goal line. So that bodes well for him. And he has special teams uh, abilities as well for the Chicago Bears. Now let's get to why Kendrick doesn't want to talk about the second part. It's because the other two players that played very well were from the Green Bay Packers. I'm not able to censor myself. It is the Green Bay Packers. Kendrick is, of course, a Bears fan, so he doesn't like to talk about the Packers. But their duo of running backs from Alcorn State, Jarvie and Howard, is in his first season trying to make the Packers roster. Emmanuel Wilson is entering his second season in the NFL, trying to make his way onto the Packers roster for the second year in a row. Emmanuel Wilson played very well, had a couple of carries for 70 something yards, scored a touchdown in that game. Jarvie and Howard had about 44 yards on 8 carries. Both guys played very well. They have a loaded, not I don't want to say loaded. They have a lot of guys in that running back room, especially now that Aaron Jones is gone. So they're gonna be in a stiff competition for that running back spot. I believe the Packers signed Josh Jacobs this offseason from the Las Vegas Raiders, excuse me. So they're going to be competing with them. A.J. Dillon, who was on the team last year, will also be in competition for a spot on the roster. And all these guys will be competing for the running back one spot. So it's not just competing for a spot on the roster. You're competing to be the running back one. And another guy that played very well is not a rookie at all. He's entering his third season in the NFL. Is Marquise Bell from Florida A&M safety. He recorded an interception in the game against I'm blanking on the team that they played, but he in his preseason opener for the
They played the Rams. I think they played.
Yeah, they played the Rams. Absolutely.
Rams,
yeah. The Rams. He had an interception in that game. Led the game with 9 tackles. So he's looking to make the Cowboys roster again and probably put at this point he's got a spot on the roster. He's competing for a starting spot at this point. So Marquise Bell had a very good preseason opener. Another guy from that game from the Los Angeles Rams on the other side of the game was Xavier Smith. He's trying to get on the roster. He was on the practice squad last year. Xavier Smith, also for Florida A&M. He had about 4 receptions for 22 yards, and he had a couple of kick returns. So he's trying to get on the 53-man roster for the first time. He was on the practice squad last year. I think I said that already. But yeah, we had a couple of guys that played well in the preseason. Mikey Victor also for the New England Patriots played well, nearly had an interception, but wasn't able to hang on to it. You know, they had to survive the ground rule, you know, for receptions. So he wasn't able to reel that in, but made a great play, extended for the ball, just was a little out of his reach, wasn't able to haul it in. But we had some great performances in the opening of the preseason, and I'm excited to see what guys, you know, make their mark and are able to make an impact for their respective teams.
Yeah, Chris, of all the guys that we've mentioned so far, what do you think, without knowing, I guess, all there is to know about each of these rosters, that the prospects these guys could like actually make the 53-man roster or make a practice squad?
The NFL is a funny business. I mean, you get 53 guys on the active roster for 32 teams. So that's roughly 1,700 spots. There's not a lot of them. So you really have to be on your P's and Q's. And I think if I had to place odds on who I think stands the best chance, I mean, we are, as Jared said, Bell's got his spot locked up, basically. I mean, it's a foregone conclusion with him because he played really well for Dallas last year. He was probably one of the few D backs on that team that actually played worth a doggone last year. But if you had to, if I were a betting man, and I'm not, by the way, don't get your gambling information from me. Don't do it. I would say that Howard and Wilson. I mean, not Wilson. Was that Emmanuel?
Manuel Wilson, yeah.
Yeah. I would say Howard and Wilson stand the best chance of, cracking that Green Bay backfield because Wilson played really well for the Packers last year. And Howard just, he seems to be a little bit more physical. I mean, granted, the running back position in the NFL has kind of gone away at a dinosaur a little bit, but you still need a little physicality in between the tackles. And I feel like Howard can give them that. So if I were a betting man, I'd probably say the best chances to make a roster right now probably are Wilson and Howard, but Wheeler, I saw him up close last year when Howard played Delaware State, and I thought he was a tremendous change of pace back, and that's something that Caleb Williams is probably going to have to rely. I mean, he already got that with DeAndre Swift, but if you can get Wheeler some touches, he can do some things in space as well. You can never have too many weapons on offense, and with a guy like Caleb Williams coming into his first year in the league, you want to surround him with as much firepower as possible. So hopefully Ian Wheeler gets a fair chance to make the Bears roster, but right now my money's on Emmanuel Wilson and Jarvion Howard to make that Packers roster. Did Kendrick freeze? Oh, no, he didn't. There he is.
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah, I'm talking about Wheeler, and for all these guys, who are kind of fighting for either playing time or roster spot, the key is being versatile. The more versatile you can be, whether it's, special teams, playing different positions, making plays during games in different spots, the better your chances will be to make the team. So I know a lot of these guys, that they might be running backs or receivers, but they can play special teams, make tackles, cover real well, and get a shot. You never know what might happen. Marquise Bell, he's pretty much going to be one of the Cowboys starters when the season starts. He played really well last year for them. Made a lot of big time plays for Dallas on a team that went to the playoffs. By the way, he wasn't a bad Dallas team. He was on a good Dallas team, so he's going to be on the roster. Jacoby Durant plays for the Rams. He's also going to be a big part of what they do in Los Angeles. So you got a lot of guys from black colleges, despite the fact they may play for teams we don't like in the NFL, but we are pulling for them nonetheless to be successful. Sticking with the football theme, we're going to talk about a coach that's in a new place, a familiar name, and that would be Fred McNair. As you guys know, Fred McNair is no longer the coach at Alcorn State anymore. It was believed that he was on the cusp of being the new head coach at Texas Southern, but because of Texas Southern's Board of Regents, they didn't think he would be a good fit for them. We heard the story before, different Boards of Regents. He did not have a job at Alcorn. He did not have a job anywhere. Now he shows up at Southern University, where he is their tight ends coach for the Jaguars. And so this past week, he did an interview with Locked On HBCU Sports, where he talked about his exit from Alcorn State, how close he relatively came to getting a job at Texas Southern, and then he got into what is his exit from Alcorn, why he decided to leave Alcorn. I'm gonna play about a 5-minute or so clip of him explaining himself and all the details that went along with that. So bear with me while I get this ready and rolling.
Naturally, you would feel like there's a little bit less on your plate, right? And there is a reason, unfortunately, that the head coaching is not going on, and that is this offseason. It appeared as if you were going to be the new Texas Southern head coach, and then that deal fell out. From your point of view and from what you know, what was the turning point that led to the contract not being agreed upon?
I really don't know, and I don't think that we ever had a contract situation in terms of that being at Texas Southern. But we just talked about it. Me and Dr. Granger, we had a conversation about it. But other than the contract wise, I haven't signed any contract upon that. But I don't do well on the past. I'm living for the future now, and so that's out the window. And I'm here at Southern now. I'm focusing on what we have to do here to win ball games here at Southern now. So I think under the leadership of Coach Graves, he's doing a tremendous job of bringing in coaches that fits the mold of his program. Try to get some wins here at Southern. Try to be a champion here at Southern. So that's my main focus right now.
And we will get to the Jaguars 100% because I do think it's important to view what is going on in the present, in the current. But I did want to ask, right, because as a Texas Southern alum, I would be lying to you if I told you I wasn't personally curious about this situation. And we only know what we see from the outside looking in. And there was multiple meetings about the potential of you being the Texas Southern head coach. Without divulging more than you want to, I just want to know what was communicated to you as they went through different meetings along the way.
That was time I think they brought me up one time for an interview, and went through the interview process there, and hoping that I have a job at Texas Southern, but it's come back around and said they was going to revisit the process, and I think somebody in the on the committee that want to go a different direction. So that's what was told to me. So understanding that as a coach and as a business person, those things happen. So just took it with the grain of salt and moved on.
It sounds like, I don't know if maybe this is because it's months in advance or months afterwards, but it sounds like this was a relatively smooth process for you. And I can tell you from the point of view of the outside looking in, this was not a smooth process. It felt very herky-jerky, right? It felt like McNair is going to be the coach. Maybe not. McNair is going to be the coach. Maybe not. But for you, it feels like you've really taken this in stride, and it's not as impactful as it is maybe months ago, or if at all.
I understand the business process of everything. As a head coach and as a position coach, things happen, and you got nothing to cry about. Just got to roll your sleeves up and try to find other employment. And thank God for thank God that Southern reached out to me, and Coach Grave and Coach Mark Frederick reached out to me one day and asked me about this job here. So I was heads over here when they called me. So I was very excited about taking this job.
And let's look back at your former employer, right? Because you were at Alcorn. What went into the decision to say, I'm going to transition from a place where I've been very comfortable, went to school here, have family roots here, been the coach here for nearly a decade. What went into the decision to say, I'm going to look elsewhere?
The biggest thing is sometimes that when you had a place so long and the place that you love and you're two-time graduate of the university, it gave you the opportunity to get my BS and my master's.
Mm-hmm.
You tend to love the place that you graduated from, your alma mater. But at the same time, you think that your alma mater have to love you too. And things that you've done and in the past and the winning traditions that we've had and the championship that we brought in as a coaching staff. But I think some of the things that I really expected to happen didn't happen. And just coming from the leadership and things that wasn't done right. But I thought that at that time it was a great time for me to say, cut my ties with it, and just sometimes you lose a lot of sleep at night of some of the things that you can't control. And when that stuff started happening, and you're not really happy anymore, it's time to move on and find your happy place. So um, the biggest thing for me that it was bittersweet, but I have to do something for myself to kind of make myself happy and unstressful and at a place now where I can sit back and kind of enjoy myself and be on a position coach and hopefully one day the opportunity will come again to be a head coach somewhere.
Yeah, so McNair there, really being candid about not only what happened at Texas Southern or didn't happen at Texas Southern, but like the end of his tenure at Alcorn State. He seemed like he wasn't very happy at the end with not just how things shook out with his contract, but he pretty much said he felt kind of like unappreciated. Like as we mentioned before, like he led them to SWAC championships, led them to the Celebration Bowl. Very successful head coach after taking over for Jay Hobson when he left for Southern Mississippi, passing along the torch in that regard. But fellas, like, do you think like Alcorn State might have dropped the ball by letting this guy go, or was he? Or did he have a legitimate case to be unappreciated?
I don't think you can legitimately disrespect. I have experience with this because I saw Delaware State kick Rod Milstead out the door after back-to-back 5-win seasons. That doesn't sound like much in the grand scheme of things, but Delaware State has not had a winning football season since 2012. And Rod Milstead is one of the most famous football alums that Delaware State has. He was a 3-time All-MEAC offensive lineman. He played on the 49ers team that won the Super Bowl. He's one of the greatest football players in Delaware State history, and his alma mater didn't love him enough to let him coach through a year where the team started 4-2, but then the COVID bug came through and just decimated the team, and that's why they finished 5-6. But apparently that was enough for the AD to say, let me bring in a new guy, and that new guy has been, 1-10 in his first year. So, these types of things, they happen. So as far as Fred McNair feeling disrespected, I get why he feels disrespected, and that's Alcorn State's mistake completely. I mean, there's a good chance that Cedric Thomas could be a great head coach. I'm not going to say he's not going to be. Now, I don't have any reason to believe after talking to him at SWAC Media Day that he won't be a good coach. But Fred McNair, I mean, the last name speaks for itself. He was the quarterback that preceded his brother, the late, great Steve Aaron McNair. So the McNair Alcorn name tied together. And if he felt disrespected by contract situation, if he felt disrespected that he didn't have the resources that he felt would be necessary to continue on the track of a winning program, then yes, he was well within his rights to move on. And yes, this is a mistake on Alcorn State's part. But I still feel like Texas Southern, their Board of Regents, maybe Chris Dishman does become a great head coach. And I mean, I'm not going to take anything away from the guy. I mean, this is a dude that played 13 years in the NFL, made a few Pro Bowls, was a part of that House of Pain secondary with his former teammate, now rival, Bubba McDowell, who, of course, is coaching Prairie View A&M. So I'm not going to sit here and say Chris Dishman won't be a great coach, but you had a sure thing in Fred McNair. You guys wanted to make a splash because remember when they were trying to, figure out who the coach was going to be, we heard names like Andre Johnson, Rod Woodson, Jared Hoffman's favorite, Ed Reed. We heard all of these names that were going to be, the guy that was going to restore the roar at Texas Southern, and they settled on Chris Dishman. And that's not to say that Chris Dishman is to be settled for, but Fred McNair has won at the SWAC level. What more do you need? I mean, does he need to tap dance? Does he need to badger reporters like Deion Sanders? I mean, what more do you want from a guy? I mean, it doesn't make any sense. But he won't be out of work for long. A guy of Fred McNair's talent and moral fiber ain't going to be an assistant coach for long. I was joking with the guys earlier this week in the chat. I said there's a potential SWAC position that could be opening up this winter that Fred McNair would be a great fit for. And I mean, I'm not going to say any names, but you guys can probably gather which one by process of elimination I'm talking about. But he's right. Whenever you feel disrespected in a situation, whenever you feel unhappy, whether it's personal, professional, you got to do what's best for you. And it seems like the Southern, tight ends position is what's best for him at this moment. But I still think at some point he's going to return to be a head coach. It's just a matter of where and when.
Yeah, the thing that stuck out for me was listening to him say he was unhappy. And I can't help but think about that period 2 years ago when Alcorn State was coming off of not playing in the 2021 season because of COVID, and they didn't have any trainers. And Fred McNair was upset about that he was practicing with his guys, getting ready for the season, getting ready for games, and they didn't have that support. And the school seemed to be pretty slow in response. And that's when, apparently he reached out to Deion Sanders and Jackson State and they were able to get some trainers. But he was like highly, highly upset about that situation. The most fundamental thing you can do for your football team is to is make sure their health is protected. To make sure
Yeah.
they go on the football field, whether it's practice or game, in a good state health wise. And he felt like the school neglected them in that moment. And so all that stuff probably added up in him saying, like, I don't want to be here no more. Like, if they can even let my players be protected from injury or get them treatment after they've been injured or during games or after games, like, why should I stay here? I should go somewhere else. Jared, your thoughts on McNair's comments about Alcorn and his prospects for getting another head coaching job down the road?
The line that stuck out to me that he said was after when addressing being at Alcorn State and when he knew it was time to end, is when he said, "You could love being at a place, but they got to love you back." And when we're talking about the lack of respect or the lack of appreciation, that's what it is. You know, you can love being at a place for however many years you've been there, however long you've served there, the community and the institution and the guys in the locker room, but they have to appreciate you back. And it just feels like he didn't feel appreciated by Alcorn or by especially by Texas Southern, because think about Texas Southern had a chance to hire as Chris said, a for sure coach, but it's before the early signing period. They choose to forego the early signing period, and then they hire Chris Dishman 2 weeks before National Signing Day. So you basically gave up your entire offseason because you didn't think that Fred McNair was the coach you needed to compete for the future. Let that sink in. A man who won 2 SWAC championships for you. You don't think that man, not for you, but like he won 2 SWAC championships. A man who won 2 SWAC championships is not good enough to be the coach for your future. A man who kept the Alcorn State program stable. He kept them up when they, as you said, lost Jay Hobson. So how is it possible that that man isn't good enough to be your coach? I get it. Alcorn State has fallen on, by their standards, hard times. They haven't had, much of any winning in the past couple of years, but that man is still a leader. That man is still somebody that is influential to the guys in your locker room. He will establish discipline. He's a guy that will establish a winning culture within your program. And you said no to him and gave up your whole offseason to hire somebody who has no coaching history at the HBCU level, let alone at the Division I level. How does that make sense? I get it. He has ties to the area. Great. How much does that help you when it comes to having results on the field? That's what I'm wondering. And then they further insult him by saying, we want Andre Johnson or my personal fave, Ed Reed. Like, 2 guys who have never coached at the Division I level in football. I get it. Andre Johnson, congratulations in the Hall of Fame. Absolutely deserving, the first Houston Texan to be in the Hall of Fame. Hopefully one day he gets the opportunity to be a coach. But to say that he deserves a job over a man who has a proven track record, who has a proven resume, is very insulting to what he did in his years at Alcorn State. Ed Reed, absolutely. I hope that he gets the opportunity to be a coach. I hope that he humbles himself and understands that the mindset that he brought to Bethune-Cookman was not right. He had the right mindset to want better for Bethune-Cookman, but the way that he went about it was unnecessary. To be derogatory towards the program, to speak ill of them as if they, well, I don't want to say speak ill. I want to choose my words right here. But to be derogatory about the circumstances that were forced upon them it's unnecessary to be. If you want to be helpful, don't do it in a public setting where you allow your fan base to speak derogatory about our institutions. There's a lot of people that follow Ed Reed that watched his live about, I don't want to, I'm getting off topic. Anyway, about Fred McNair. But that all ties in that's who they wanted ahead of Fred McNair. A guy who went on live and talked about the circumstances of Bethune-Cookman's campus instead of going to the university president privately and communicating as to what their circumstances were and why it needs to be better. That's who they wanted ahead of Fred McNair. A guy who was a great Hall of Fame receiver in Andre Johnson, probably has ties to the Houston area, but has never coached at the Division I level. That's who they wanted over a 2-time SWAC championship coach. That I'm just gonna have to keep saying this because it's gonna keep being relevant. Everybody is not Dion. Stop expecting these celebrity hires to be Dion. Andre Johnson probably will be a great coach one day. We don't know that he will be Dion because you can't replicate his personality. You can't replicate his ability to be a marketer. You can't replicate the talent that followed Dion. You can't replicate any of that. You can replicate all the Power 5 caliber guys who aren't getting the opportunities at the Power 5 level wanting to come to your program. But do they have the work ethic of Aubrey Miller? Do they have the talent of James Houston? Do they have the unnatural skill of Travis Hunter? You can't replicate what Dion did. So stop trying to do what Jackson State and Dion did. And go for the person who we know is a sure thing that this guy is very influential. He is a good role model. He is a guy that you want in your locker room, communicating not just what it takes to be a great player or to have a great team, but what it means to be a great man. That's what should be important. Not getting the coach that'll get you the clicks, not getting the coach that's going to get you the media attention, not getting the coach that you think could be the guy that brings you the top recruits that puts the lights on your program. Sorry, I took up all the time. But
oh no,
we need to pass a collection plate for that.
I know. Like if I had my wallet, I'll definitely give you a couple dollars for that one.
He was preaching.
Yeah, but I think you're right, Jared. Though it seems like not only did Alcorn State disrespect him, but Texas Southern disrespected him too. In a sense, a championship winning coach, a coach who's done a lot for a school where it's notoriously hard to recruit at, hard to win at, and he did both of them. And for a stretch there, Alcorn State was one of the most preeminent teams in black college football, this side of North Carolina A&T. But yeah, Fred McNair, I think he's going to be a head coach again somewhere. If not next season, but down the road. And he's a coach who definitely shouldn't be a tight ends coach. He should be leading somebody's program for sure. He didn't deserve the way he was treated at Alcorn State, and definitely didn't deserve to be treated the way he did at TSU, despite the fact that athletic director was really wanting him to be the head coach. And these boards of regents and board of trustees got in the way.
And especially
all year.
The Southern of all places.
Yeah.
Look,
I don't think Chris Dishman is going to be moving mountains like a celebrity coach would.
But before Chris Dishman, before we even get to Chris Dishman being hired, Texas Southern hasn't had a winning season in over a decade. They haven't had a winning season. We said the same thing about Florida A&M's basketball program. You haven't had a winning season in so long. Why are you being picky? Especially when you have a coach right here who has shown that he can win at the highest level. You have no reason to be picky. Go with the coach that we've seen. And that I did a SWAC coaches ranking a couple of years ago. I put Fred McNair at 3rd. You would think I put him at 12th the way that all of those SWAC fans were in my mentions talking about this is a stupid list and you need to change it. Fred McNair needs to be at number 1. That's the guy that you passed up on. The man that has the respect of not just Alcorn State community, not just the SWAC community, but the HBCU community as a whole. That's the man that you disrespected and passed on and gave up your whole offseason to go for a guy that we haven't seen do it at the highest level yet. That's what I don't understand. And I can't stress this enough. You have no reason to be picky. You haven't won anything. So what are you being picky for? I don't get it. I'm kind of saying that tongue in cheek because with this next story, we have no room for jokes. But you have to understand that you have to have a full offseason in order to be able to rebuild every single year. You have to utilize your off season to the best of your ability. And Texas Southern wasted theirs by disrespecting Fred McNair and giving him the contract that he deserves to be the leader of their program. Hopefully it works out for them in the end. I know Fred McNair ain't losing no sleep.
Yeah, I think maybe someone at TSU probably read your list and saw Fred McNair was third. Was like, third? We can't hire the third best coach in the SWAC.
Let me find out if it was because of my list. I'm gonna be so upset.
It would be preposterous. We're better than that. We have standards at Texas Southern. Yeah, but like it is what it is, though. Like we'll see how the Dishman era goes at Texas Southern. Like they're pretty excited about him. Hopefully they'll win more than one game this year. We'll see. And moving on to something a little bit more serious than jobs of football coaches, is a story that Chris Stevens did a remarkable job reporting over the last, I don't know how long he worked on it, several weeks, where he talked to players, ex-players, and parents who were associated with the Virginia State University lacrosse, women's lacrosse team. And they told him in great detail tales of abuse and what read like to me neglect and just disrespect of them as not only just athletes but as just like students and young people. The story's up on our website right now. It's been up all morning. It's getting a lot of reception. And some may read it and say, well, this is a case of, young people not being tough enough, young people being wusses, young people not prepared or able to handle a coach or a school who may be a little bit hard on them. And some might read this and say, well, dang, this is nothing new. This happens like pretty much everywhere. And you're right. This is like abuse, verbal abuse and neglect from programs all across this country is commonplace now because more players are speaking up about it. They're revealing these things. More reporters like Chris are finding out about these things and bringing them to light. So I'm going to give Chris all the room he needs to kind of explain his reporting and how we got here and kind of like, what he makes of all this that happened at Virginia State. Chris, take it away.
Thanks, Kendrick. And I do want to say that Kendrick made some great points, and to kind of expound on that, there's a greater conversation going on about, corporal punishment as far as parents go, spanking their kids and all of that. It's become passe. Like, people, there's this new thing that people have taken and run with it called, I don't want to call it soft life parenting. I think it's something else,
It's gentle parenting. That's what it is.
Gentle parenting. Yes. Thank you. And people are taking gentle parenting as, these parents just let their kids run crazy and do whatever. No, it is a different sort of discipline, is that you talk to your kids before you just start smacking them up all willy-nilly. So what that relates to me, what that has to do with Virginia State women's lacrosse is this program is fair. To be fair to Virginia State, this is the first year they had a women's lacrosse program, and they had a decent year. They were 5-6. I don't know if you guys have ever started a college program in any sport, but to win 5 games in your first year, Division II or not, it's pretty good. You almost went 500. You were close to a winning season for the most part. And considering what those girls went through, because I spoke to 4 players, no, 3 players, 4 parents, and an educational advocate. So if anybody's wondering, how much work went into this, a lot. I spent hours on the phone. I have nearly between 8 to 10 pages worth of notes. I have court documents. Like as a sports reporter, when you start veering over into court documents, you're starting to get into a whole nother territory here. So, listening to these young ladies and the stuff that's in the story is just the stuff that we could keep for brevity's sake. There was a lot more. There were more stories of horror that we had to, kind of leave on the cutting room floor, as it were. And I'm speaking, trying to just be as tenacious as a journalist I can, but also at the same time be respectful. Because these are 18, 19-year-old girls. And I told them straight up, I said, I've been doing this longer than y'all have been alive. And this is one of the strangest stories I've ever written, ever reported about. This is one of the strangest things I've ever heard. And it's disappointing because lacrosse is one of those sports where Black people are just starting to get into it. Our kids are just starting to get into it. We have 5 programs, 3 women's programs, Howard, Delaware State, who's had their own issues with coaching issues, in Virginia State on the women's side. And on the men's side, you have UDC and Virginia State just started a program. Wait, Hampton has a program too, so yes, 6. So yes, we have 6 programs for lacrosse at HBCUs, 3 men, 3 women. And Virginia State to start off on a bad foot like this it's terrible. And speaking to these parents, like, you could hear the disappointment, you could hear the confusion, you could hear the heartbreak in their voices that I trusted my daughters with this coach and this administration, and they just neglected them entirely. Like the fight story is what got me. There's another story that I wish I could tell, but that was one of those stories that we had to, leave out for, for privacy's sake. And that's that young lady's story to tell anyway. I hope she finds the courage to do so, because she had the courage to talk to me anyway. She just said, please don't mention this. And I'm like, cool, won't do it. But the fight story is what got me, because we at HBCUs, we hold ourselves up to be, a welcoming community, a community of high standards. And if one player is threatening, going around, and there again, I have the documents, there are text messages, there's, social media banter that this player was going to, bleep this other player up. And the player who was in harm's way went to the coach, and the coach pretty much said, stay away from him. So how's that going to be possible when they stay in the same dorm? Y'all tell me how that works. And then, of course, the fight ended up making one of those HBCU shade. It made the HBCU shade room one of those, sort of off the radar, gossip sites on Twitter or what have you. And that had to be embarrassing for the young lady who knew she was in danger, and it should have been embarrassing for Virginia State. But that was just one instance. There were instances of a girl with ADHD being, harassed by the athletic director. There's all sorts of things that was related to me. These are stories that were told to me by the players and their parents. And you don't get 8 people with the same story and think that there's not any truth to it. There has to be, because how many players and parents are going to get together and say, oh, we just going to make this story up and, just to embarrass Virginia State? That would be very sinister if they did, and I would feel like a damn fool if they did, but I don't have any reason to believe they would do that. And of course, with the court documents backing up everything this player said, it was just like, okay. So it's disappointing from a standpoint that this is a sport that Black people could conceivably latch onto and be really good at. Because if you've never watched lacrosse, it's basically hockey and combination of hockey and football on grass. It's exciting, it's aggressive, it's hard hitting, it's high impact, it's high octane offense. It's a great sport, but it's been predominantly, a white sport for many years, even though indigenous people, the Iroquois people in northwestern New York founded the sport originally. But, it's been a white sport for generations, and Black people are starting to get into it. But situations like this don't help. Situations like at Delaware State don't help. And if we have grown adults, treating other people's children like that, then why are we having a program? And what one parent was so frustrated with me was like, she said, "This is a young black coach." I mean, and for the record, I have no problem with Coach Ashley Lawrence. When I talked to her last spring, when the program first started, we had a great conversation. But at the same time, it's my job as a journalist to report the facts. So no, this is not. I don't have any. I'm not. There's no disappointment. There's no shade. There's no anything other than me reporting the facts. But I have to agree with this parent, because if you're ill-equipped to deal with teenagers and young 20 somethings, then you shouldn't be a coach. You shouldn't be a teacher. You shouldn't be an athletic director. And I mean, that's crazy to say about someone like Peggy Davis with her resume. But when I hear that players saying, "Oh, coach can do whatever she wants to you as long as it's legal, and if you guys were really tired of it, you would leave, but you ain't left yet, so you must like it." I mean, that is like some old Gen X boomer lost generation type parenting there from an athletic director. And one thing that I've learned in following the political space about Gen Z and upcoming Gen Alpha, they ain't with the BS at all. They're going to call you out whether they see fit. Don't care how you feel about it. If you're an older person screwing up, they will let you know, or they will let somebody know that you are messing up. And I just don't have any reason to believe that these players and these parents are just making up stories just for the sake of making up stories. So it was tough to write. I mean, like, just pouring through all the information and just remembering hearing, how one girl was just like, "I don't even want to look at a lacrosse stick. All of my teammates are in therapy." And that was just devastating to hear, because again, this is a sport that black people really don't play that much of. They're starting to make, inroads towards, getting more of us involved. But this definitely helps lacrosse take a step back in black communities if black coaches and administrators don't have their players' best interests at heart. It was a tough story to write, but it felt like it was necessary. And I hope, if nothing else comes out of it, that Virginia State just basically does better, because they did these girls this first class totally wrong.
Yeah, and just to repeat what Chris said, like that line he talked about what Peggy Davis said, the athletic director. And for the record, we did reach out to Ashley Lawrence. We reached out to Peggy Davis. Reached out to the school president for comment. We try to corroborate or clarify or get some more context to these incidents, and they did not respond to any of our correspondence. So, and it's mentioned in the story as well. Yeah, but what Chris said about Peggy Davis and her comment, when a player went to her and Davis responded by saying, "Stop complaining about Lawrence," because she was allegedly tired of hearing it. And Davis suggested that they leave if they didn't like the way they were being treated. And then the player went on to say that Davis allegedly told the whole team this, that Coach Lawrence can do anything she wants to you as long as it's legal. And if you're a parent, I'm a parent, many of you listening and watching are parents, if you're a parent who like sees something like that or hears about something like that, it's terrifying. And like, a school administrator is telling an authority figure they could do anything they want to your child as long as they don't break the law. Okay, so where's the line then? So where the hell's the line?
Yeah. It chills you to the bone. I'm not a parent, but it chills me to the bone when that young lady told me that. I literally had to stop and, catch my breath. I was like, what? Like, I'm not a parent, but I feel for parents that do. I mean, like I said, I spoke to these moms, these dads, these guardians, and they were just like crestfallen that this could happen to their kid. And to hear that, it was just like, yeah, there's something seriously wrong here.
Yeah, Jared, you have poignant thoughts about these things, man. What do you make of everything you've read and know about the story of Virginia State?
First of all, I have two cousins who are in college, one of which is starting his freshman season and is on the school's football team. I cannot say on camera what I would do if one of them were told by the school's administrator that the coach can do whatever they want to them as long as it's within the law. I'm just going to leave that there. I want to read to you two paragraphs from this story that really stuck out to me and really just irritated me to my soul. And to anyone watching, I want to say trigger warning before I read what I'm about to read. It says, and I quote, "During the season, things just got weird. She was acting different, mean to everyone, the players said. The vibe during the season was that she stopped caring about us as players completely. I ended up getting a concussion and they begged me to come back to get through protocol. We had players who were hurt and injured. She'd just say, I don't know, go see the trainer. We were not safe. Speaking up about the treatment we received was not allowed. We'd constantly have remediation meetings where the school counselors would say, your coach told us to do this. She says, you all are having team issues. We collectively would say over and over, the issue is not us, it is her. Now, look, I'm not here to talk about whether or not these claims are true or not. I have no reason to believe that these are false. I would love for Coach Lawrence to tell her story. I would love for the school's administrators to tell their stories because we need two sides. There's two sides to every story. I would love for the full truth to come out so I can know how to feel about everything. But speaking about what is said here, if what is said here is true, Virginia State needs a full overhaul. A full overhaul. And that includes the school's counselor, because that is unacceptable. Counseling is a service within universities that is expected for anonymity. Everything that is said is confidential. Everything is done with confidentiality. There is no reason why any school's athletic coach should ever come to you and tell you that you're not allowed to do this. I don't know. What is this? What did it say? Your coach told us to do this. No. My coach told you to do what? No. I'm allowed to speak to you. My coach can't tell me who I can speak to or not about what's going on with me mentally or physically. Since when? Since when has that ever been a thing? That a school's lacrosse coach can just say to your counselor, "Oh, you're not allowed to speak to my kid on my team." No, that's not okay. And then talking about they begged me to come back from my concussion. Concussions are in this point in sports, rightfully so, taken with the seriousness of with the utmost seriousness. Concussions, especially in lacrosse, as Chris detailed, with this being a mix of football and hockey, two of the most concussion-prone sports in the world, you do not play with concussions whatsoever. So rushing them back from, I don't know if they were saying that they should forego protocol. I don't want to put that message out there because it's not what it says. I don't want to deduce that it was trying to say that and be completely wrong. But if that person suffered a concussion, or whether it's a mild concussion, severe concussion, I don't care what. I don't care if they just hit their head and they said that they were fine. You take that with the utmost seriousness and go through the as rigorous of testing that you could possibly go through. I work with I don't want to go off on a tangent, but I work with a flag football league with kids. And if I see them hit their head in any way, I tell them, no, you cannot go back in that game. I don't care what the coach tells you. And that's flag football. And they're little kids. These are adults who are playing with other adults. That is not okay. And everything about this story is just so disturbing. It is unacceptable. And I truly hope that Coach Lawrence and the administrators involved come out and speak on their half of the story, because I need this full story. I need to know everything. And obviously, we're never going to really know everything, because if what's said in this article is true, we're never going to know the full truth. That's just the fact of the matter. Now, if it isn't true, then what's the shame of coming out and saying this is not true and laying out your side of the story? What's the shame in that? The only reason why there is silence, especially with allegations in this article that would be felonies in our criminal system. That would be felonies in our criminal system. If not, obviously it would be misdemeanors, but there will be there's things outlined in here that are felonies and misdemeanors that can give you serious consequences. So my heart breaks for these young ladies who, obviously we're not allowed to divulge their names, but my heart breaks for the parents and for the children who were interested in getting involved with lacrosse. And obviously lacrosse is going to be in the Olympics in 2028, and there's kids in this story saying that they just don't even want to be involved with lacrosse at all. Not with another university, obviously not with this university. It's sad. It's sad because what if they would have decided that they want to continue with lacrosse and maybe hopefully put their name in the hat to be in lacrosse in the 28 Olympics? This would have been big for us as institutions to have our lacrosse players in the Olympics. Obviously, that's not the point of this story. That's not even relevant when we're talking about this story, but it is something that should be considered, that we are making people lose love for a sport because we don't know how to act, that we don't know how to treat our young people. We have these old school mentalities that have been, quite honestly, out of date for well over a decade. And it's just really unfortunate. I would love to hear I need every side of this story, because if this side of the story is true, and I have no reason to believe why they would want to make up a story like this, Virginia State needs a massive overhaul if this is true, because this is unacceptable, absolutely unacceptable, and especially since one of my cousins goes to this school. And go ahead. I don't even want to say what I was thinking. Go ahead.
Yeah, like for me, and I'm gonna just piggyback what Jared said. Like when a parent sends their kid to a college, especially if you're going to college like out of state, like you're entrusting these people you don't really know that well with the well-being of your kid. And those kids are entrusting their coach with their own well-being. The number one responsibility for a person who's dealing with young people is to make sure that their well-being is taken care of. And in this story, it seemed like that wasn't at the forefront at all. For whatever reason, I don't know why it is, but it not happened. And hopefully the particulars in this story will come out with statements or comments or something to try to let us know a little bit more than what we already know right now. But like, it's disappointing. Like Chris, you talked about them not wanting to play lacrosse no more. Jerry, you talked about them losing, trust. But for me, like, those kids probably lost trust in like adults in general, maybe aside from their parents. Like, who are they going to trust ever again after this? If all this is true, like, who are they ever going to trust again? Not just with lacrosse or in sports, but like in any other realm of their lives. And this is like very traumatic for them. Like, how are they going to open up to like someone who's not their parents or someone who they don't know very well ever again over this? And so that's kind of like the imprint that incidents like this, not only in Virginia State, but elsewhere across the country involving PWIs too, leave on these young people. And we wonder why sometimes young people behave the way they behave and do the things they do. Sometimes it's not because they were raised wrong or because they're disrespectful or they don't respect authority. Sometimes the adults in their lives who they trusted so much betrayed them. And they figure, well, if these people who are supposed to be adults or mentors or whatever treat me like this, why should I respect other people too? And so we're creating a horrible cycle with things like this. Like I've always said, like college coaches in any sport are the stars of amateur sports, and they've been empowered for far too long. And now some of that power is starting to shift toward the athletes, and a lot of people out there don't like it because of it. They're afraid, well, if athletes get money, if athletes get these benefits, if athletes get that, that they know it's no longer going to be amateurism, and they no longer have control over these players. Well, the players need to have a voice. They need to have control over their own careers in college and their own destiny, because for far too long, coaches and administrators have exploited them and abused them to many degrees. And so I'm hoping like something good comes of this. I'm hoping like someone's held responsible for this when we know more about it. But yeah, like this was a really great story reported by Chris of something that was terrible. I hope all y'all get a chance to read whenever you can. But that's all I gotta say about it. Fellas, any last words?
No, I think we've expended all of our energy on this. Like that was a lot, but yeah, if you guys can just go to hbcusports.com, stories up, there's, there you can read it, decide for yourself. But again, all the research, all the interviews I've done, I just don't have any reason to believe that these folks, are just making up stuff to make up stuff. So hopefully something good comes out of this. I told one young lady, I said, don't let somebody take, I told them all, I said, don't let somebody take from you what you feel like, you're good at or what you've worked so hard for. And they're just like, oh, I don't know. This is a lot. And I'm like, you know what? You're right. You do it, you deal with it at your pace. But at the same time, I hope Virginia State, if they do, the door is open. I've sent emails. Kendrick knows, Ken Rashad knows. They're copied on him. We reached out to Virginia State. They didn't respond, but the door is open. This isn't going to be a one-sided thing. Virginia State, if y'all want to speak out, I am here. I am not a hard person to find, but at the same time, this story, just read it for yourself, and hopefully, these young ladies and their parents, and their families can heal from this, and Virginia State comes out of this a better program, because this was just poorly handled all the way around.
Yeah, and I just want to end by saying to the young ladies who are shared their stories, thank you so much for your bravery. Thank you so much for your transparency and speaking about such traumatic events that went on during your time at the Virginia State lacrosse program. I pray that you heal from this. I pray that you understand that this is not the norm. This is I'm not even take the HBCU out of this. Don't even focus on that. That's not important when we're talking about this. I'm talking about the norm in humanity. That is not the norm whatsoever. And what you experience is not okay. And it is okay to not be okay. And I hope that you have, and I thank you for having the bravery to share your experiences. And I pray that you continue to have the bravery to heal from this and to continue to speak out about events that you went through, that you had to witness, the things that you had to go through, and that you're able to help somebody else who is in a similar situation, that you give them the bravery to want to speak about the things that they went through, that they were probably silenced into speaking about, but overall, this is just I can't even think of a word to say about it. It's just sad. This is sad. And to Virginia State, again, I've said it multiple times. I'm gonna say it again. Please share your side of the story, Coach Lawrence. Who was it? The president or somebody?
Athletic director, Peggy Davis.
Miss Davis. I hope that you both, see this story, whether it's true or not. I hope that you have the common sense to either tell the truth about this, everything that has happened, and apologize to these young women, or handle this privately. You owe no explanation to us. Let's be clear about that. You owe no explanation to us. The explanation and the apology needs to be to these young women if this story is true. And I hope that you handle this behind closed doors, and either in closed doors or publicly. I don't care. But as long as these young women are that they are, I don't know, but that they understand that what they went through is not okay, and that you understand that you caused their pain, and that you do something to rectify that, because that's no young child should ever have to go through that, and no parent should ever have to console their child from going through what they went through. So I just hope that this situation resolves itself and that we're all better as a result of this.
Yeah, agreed. Like normally like to lead a show on a high note, but it's hard to do that after digesting this story and kind of like all the implications of it. But I'm Kendrick. That's Jared. He's Chris. Thanks for watching and listening. Be sure to subscribe to our channel and like so to get more videos like this one. And go to our website. You can find Chris's story, other things we reported about Black College sports. We have a store. You can buy merchandise, hats, shirts, hoodies, things of that nature. So yeah. So we'll be here frequently on this channel, bring you the latest news in Black College sports, from football to lacrosse to baseball, everything in between. We appreciate your opportunity to speak to you, and you guys watching. Have a good day.